pay attention to moments of change, right? So in a dynamic organization like Instagram, new stuff is happening all the time, right? New products are launching, new markets are launching. Those moments of change are actually incredible opportunities to learn.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. 20-Minute Leaders is a proud supporter of Make-A-Wish Israel and Tech to Peace, and is in proud collaboration with Secret Chord Ventures, J Ventures, Riverside FM, Fusion VC, Birthright Excel, J Impact, Leap, Google for Startups, and Hippo, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Today's episode is with Elliot Shmukler. Previously, he was the Chief Growth Officer at Instacart, where he led the company through a massive period of change and hypergrowth. Prior to that, he's held senior product and growth leadership roles at fast-growing companies like Wealthfront and LinkedIn. He began his career as an engineer and product manager at companies like Microsoft and eBay. Elliot is a recognized expert on data-driven product management and consumer growth strategies in Silicon Valley, with numerous talks and publications on these topics. He holds a degree in computer science from Harvard University and an MBA from the Stanford Graduate School of Business. Today, he is the CEO of Anomalo. Elliot Shmukler, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders all the way from Menlo Park, California. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
No, I know how busy you are, and I'm so excited to have you here, Elliot. You've probably had experiences at the top companies in the world, not just from an interest perspective, but also just in terms of the companies that most people would want to even experience at some point, whether it's eBay, LinkedIn, Wealthfront, Instacart as Chief Growth Officer, and now Anomalo as a CEO. And so crazy experiences. I'm really what I want to do is to just understand you better, understand your journey and the different insights you've picked up on, all the way from getting your bachelor's at Harvard to your MBA at Stanford. So really, there must be so many different nuggets that I'll extract from you in these 20 minutes. So I just want to start with your upbringing. Tell me a little bit about you as a kid. What did you envision for yourself growing up?
Yeah. I didn't envision much. I think I'll give you a few formative experiences from my childhood. So one, I'm an immigrant, like a lot of folks are that end up in startups. I was actually born in Ukraine.
Wow.
And came to the US when I was 10, and was just a happy-go-lucky, person. But then when I came to the US, I met my cousin who had been here for a very long time, and he introduced me to computers. And, I was blown away really in that first interaction with his Commodore 64.
Wow.
Computer. That's a model they had in the 80s.
I heard about that in the history books.
Yeah, that's right. And so it set me on a path of really trying to learn as much as I could about computers and trying to find every opportunity to work with them and play with them and understand them better. And so I idolized some of the early pioneers, the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates. And so that was pretty formative.
And where were you living back then?
I was in New York.
You were in New York.
When we came to the US, I lived in New York, and only really came out to California for graduate school.
Incredible. So tell me a little bit more how this sort of curiosity led you throughout your career. You get to take part in these remarkable companies. What has sort of been your guide in choosing your respective positions or choosing what you'll be working on? That's always interesting to me.
Yeah. So at first, I just wanted to code, right? I just wanted to be an engineer. So if you look at some of my early jobs, I was just excited to be coding stuff and making computers do things and building products, through my technical efforts. But I think it was when I was at Microsoft that I discovered that there was this other side to building things, which was product management. Right. We had engineers, right? Of course, Microsoft thousands, I don't know, maybe it's tens of thousands of engineers.
Sure.
But we had product managers, and Microsoft called them program managers, that were very technical, had been former engineers quite often, but actually got to make the bigger decisions about the products that we were building, got to kind of figure out our strategy and got to set the priorities. And I was enjoying being an engineer, but I kind of wanted to do that. I kind of wanted to make the more important decisions and have broader scope.
Interesting. What was it about? What was it about product management that really spoke to you? Because you were mentioning the fascination with computers and making stuff happen yourself, and now you're talking. There's product management. You have much different decisions to be making. You're a little bit stepping away from the nitty-gritty details of coding. You're going into an entire product and situational awareness. So what was it really that spoke to you at that point?
I just saw the problems that the product managers were solving as more interesting problems to solve. I think that was literally it. We were, of course, coding and engineering has lots of problems and lots of things that you need to solve. But I just saw the high level problems that the product managers were solving. The competitive strategy, what's right for the user, how do we make this as simple as possible to use? And I just thought those were more interesting problems. And because they were still technical in nature, they're still kind of connected to my initial passion around computers and technology.
Are there some specific experiences in that transition to product management that you particularly remember as sort of mind-altering for you or giving you new perspectives and appreciation for this type of work?
Yeah. So a few, kind of one of the biggest formative experiences, I fell in love with product manager and I started working on it, ended up at eBay as a product manager. But I didn't really know what I was doing. And eBay was, of course, a great environment where you're surrounded by lots of great product managers. There's product management training and all those kinds of things. But one of the biggest insights actually during that time, which connects to what I do today, was the power of data. Right? I just thought, and at Microsoft, this was true, that product manager just made decisions based on, first principles thinking.
Interesting.
Their perception of the market was almost like a philosophical system, right? And by arguing with their bosses, maybe, right?
Interesting.
Because at Microsoft, that's how a lot of decisions were made. It was based on this kind of strategic first principles thinking. And then I was exposed to things during business school and also at eBay that showed, hey, there's another way to make decisions, which is by using data. And in fact, you can collect data specifically for the purpose of making a decision. That's what an A/B test, right, is, or an experiment is. You're collecting data so that you can make a decision later. And that was really fascinating.
And I just want to make sure I get the timeline right. This is these are insights that you have back in grad school, which is quite some time ago, right? So these are and just giving a quick spoiler. This is a part of the essence of what Anomalo is, the startup that you're currently running. Look at it and at enterprise data, but we'll stick to the timeline for now and then connect the dots. So jump with me to your time at Instacart, because I'm sure anybody who's tuning in here is immediately going to want to understand that perspective. Instacart is known to be, one of those case studies, those hallmarks companies of fast growth. You were the chief growth officer there for some time. Tell me a little bit about that position for you.
Yeah, no, it was a great position and a great job, and of course a great company that's very successful even today. What was interesting about Instacart is everyone knows about its fast growth, but what was interesting when I started is the company was growing, but didn't really understand why. Right? They didn't really understand what drove growth and what stopped growth from happening. There were all these mysteries. Why was this particular market launch successful, but this one just a week later wasn't?
Interesting.
Right. why do we stop growing during certain months of the year? And then certain months we grow super fast, and I was even brought on board during a period when growth had slowed down. The company had spent a few months focusing on profitability, which is very important when you're in the delivery business. And we're shocked to discover at the end of their profitability efforts that growth had actually stopped. They were profitable now, but growth had stopped. And so that was one of the reasons why I think the company brought me in, because they're like, well, we need someone to reaccelerate growth again, right? Can't be a venture-backed company without fast growth.
Sure.
And really, it was an exercise that, I've seen in other places, which is to drive growth, you actually need to understand what makes you grow. You need to understand the system of growth, right? What helps you grow? What hurts you from growing? And so we spent quite a bit of time using data primarily, right, to connect the dots a little bit more to understand why Instacart was growing and why it wasn't growing in some cases. And then once we understood, it was pretty easy to kind of double down on the things that were working and get the company to grow again.
So it can't be as simple as, let's just look at the data, make sense of it, and make decisions based off of that. You have to really put in some structured work in place. What did you find that needed to happen with your leadership that really made the difference in the way even people think through data analysis or data synthesis?
Yeah, there were a couple of things. And so you're right. Just looking at the data at a surface level doesn't really help you with these things. You need to somehow find the deeper insights. And so I'll give you a few things that we did that were particularly successful. One is pay attention to moments of change, right? So in a dynamic organization like Instacart, new stuff is happening all the time, right? New products are launching, new markets are launching. Those moments of change are actually incredible opportunities to learn. And you learn more from understanding that change point and what happened than you might from tons of examination of the overall data set or the surface level.
Interesting.
So I'll give you an example.
Please.
Right. When I was at Instacart, an effort that started before I arrived, concluded in the launch of a new retailer on the platform, a new grocery retailer in Florida, right? The retailer is Publix. It's the number one grocery retailer in Florida, right? Everyone who lives in Florida knows Publix, right? It's very famous. And so that was a moment of change, right? I had nothing to do with it. The team was already in progress in launching it. But what you could see is that there was a clear inflection in growth in Florida, right? Literally at that moment in time, at that point of change. And so that gave us a pretty big clue. Maybe there's something about Publix, right, that accelerates growth. What is it? And so we actually paid a lot of attention to that moment and tried to figure out, well, what is it? What did we or they or our combination do to accelerate growth? And can we take whatever it is and, do it for everyone, do it for every market?
And it sounded like that behavior turned out to be pretty successful given what we saw in the coming years. We have just a few minutes left, Elliot. First, I want to mention that I love the curiosity that you bring with you to these different worlds, right? You didn't just play a role in these companies. You're talking about your experiences as a change maker, challenging the norms, looking at your own education and your own experiences and how to consistently build this sort of game-changing mentality of, okay, this is, we're doing great, sure, but if we do this could be great. Tell me about your most recent startup now, Anomalo, which also has to do with enterprise data.
Absolutely. So, as hopefully has been clear through our chat, I've been a heavy user of data.
Yeah.
For nearly 20 years, I think in a lot of different companies. So I've seen the value of being a truly data-driven organization, of noticing when things are changing in your data, of obtaining deep insights. And And so the vision for Anomalo is to bring that power to more organizations. And one of the things we saw at Instacart, we saw very directly is, of course, Instacart, very sophisticated, data-driven organization, lots of people, lots of machine learning experts, lots of data flowing in. One of the hardest things in running in a data-driven way was actually just monitoring our data and making sure it was correct, right? And making sure nothing crazy was happening, or noticing if something crazy did happen so we could investigate it, right? That was one of the hardest things. And we were kind of hurt time and again from our data breaking, our data disappearing, our data changing in some crazy way that we didn't expect, breaking lots of other things. So Anomalo is the product I wish I would have had.
Wow.
In all those roles as kind of a data-driven product leader, because what Anomalo can do is it can connect to your enterprise data, to your data warehouse, and monitor everything in your data. Make sure your data is actually there, that it's consistent with what has come before, that it doesn't have unusual changes or drift. And if it finds any of those things, it can let you know so you can investigate and you can figure out what's going on.
So the main pain point that I'm understanding here is this ability to detecting these changes, to detecting, those mishaps, the changes, the lack of data, because it's, the classic question here is the structured versus unstructured approach. And how do you make sense of data that, in a scalable, generalized way, which is one of the most difficult pain points of data decision-making. Why do you converge that this specific issue is the most impactful one that you can create? I mean, you could have created any company in any domain at this point. Why this? Why now?
Well, it's an area of passion for me, as it's hopefully clear. I have achieved a lot of things in my career as a data-driven leader. I want more leaders and more companies to be data-driven and achieve those same results. And I'm excited about having the right tools to truly be data-driven and to find the right insights and to be able to accelerate growth, right? Or improve your product for whatever you want to do. And this was a real gap that I saw. If you think about the evolution of data in the last 10 years, a lot of things that were hard when I was, doing growth at LinkedIn and running experiments 10 years ago are pretty easy now. You can have a massive data warehouse in the cloud that's set up in minutes. You can use a tool like dbt to transform your data effortlessly, right? And create whatever you need to create to consume that data. You have these powerful machine learning frameworks that allow you to learn from your data. But this basic idea of who's actually monitoring your data to make sure it's correct and to make sure it doesn't have any crazy changes that you should notice and react to, that really didn't exist, right? Or it existed in a way that was never going to work. For example, there are rule-based solutions out there where you have to define rules for your data. So
Sure.
you do tons of work
Sure.
to find anything, and then your data changes in unexpected ways and your rules don't work anymore. And so, both my co-founder, Jeremy, and I saw this as a huge gap in kind of the data stack, the set of tools that modern data practitioners use. And we were excited to solve it.
I love it. Elliot, the excitement is infectious. Last question for you. How do you get the people that work with you to share this passion? I get that you've had, more than 20 years of experience dealing with this same problem and it's crystal clear for you now. How do you get the people that are working with you that perhaps don't have that shared experience to understand the magnitude of what they're doing?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, we've been able to hire a lot of people that resonated with this problem. There's a lot of folks in every function that have used data in their careers, and a lot of folks that have experienced data failures and data issues, right? And issues with the quality of the data that we're using. And those tend to be a lot of the folks that get attracted to Anomalo because they get the problem, right? Maybe they weren't a data scientist before, maybe they weren't a data-driven leader, but they get the problem
Sure.
through some experience that they've had. And so they understand why it's important that we solve it.
Elliot, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time and your energy and the intentionality and the insights. Literally, looking at the whole industry and looking at a pain point that's horizontal, and creating not even just a solution for it, but creating a new framework of thinking through the importance of data and these detections. So thank you very, very much. Best of luck with Anomalo. I'm going to be cheering from the side. And thank you for the time.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. It's been a pleasure.